President Smith went on to state, "The quibbler might say that this statement from Oliver Cowdery is merely the opinion of Oliver Cowdery and not the expression of the prophet Joseph Smith. It should be remembered that these letters in which these statements are made were written at the prophet's request and under his personal supervision. Surely under these circumstances he would not have permitted an error of this kind to creep into the record without correction. At the commencement of these historical letters is found the following: that our narrative may be correct, and particularly the introduction, it is proper to inform our patrons that our brother J. Smith, Jr. has offered to assist us. Indeed, there are many items connected with the forepart of this subject that render his labor indispensable. With his labor and authentic documents new in our possession, we hope to render this a pleasing and agreeable narrative, well worth the examination and perusal of the saints." It is here noted that later during the Nauvoo period of the church, and again under the President Joseph Smith, these same letters by Oliver Cowdery were republished. Now, believing what the prophet Joseph Smith and those associated with him said, also all of the prophets since, can there be any doubt in anyone's mind that the hill Cumorah near Palmyra, New York, is the only hill Cumorah? Let us now study how the Nephites fortified their cities and how they buried their dead by reading the Book of Mormon itself. We will read Alma chapter 49 verses 4, 18, 19, and 22. "But behold, how great was their disappointment! The Nephites had dug up a ridge of earth round about them, which was so high that the Lamanites could not cast their stones and their arrows at them, that they might take effect. Neither could they come upon them save it was by their place of entrance. Now behold, the Lamanites could not get into their forts of security by any other way save by the entrance, because of the highness of the bank which had been thrown up, and the depth of the ditch which had been dug round about, save it were by the entrance. And thus were the Nephites prepared to destroy all such as should attempt to climb up to enter the fort by any other way, by casting over stones and arrows at them. Now when they found that they could not obtain power over the Nephites by the pass, they began to dig down their banks of earth, that they might obtain a pass to their armies, that they might have an equal chance to fight. But behold, in these attempts they were swept off by the stones and arrows which were thrown at them. And instead of filling up their ditches by pulling down the banks of earth, they were filled up in a measure with their dead and wounded bodies." Now, Alma chapter 50, verses 1 through 6. "And now it came to pass that Moroni did not stop making preparations for war, or to defend his people against the Lamanites. For he caused that his armies should commence in the commencement of the 20th year of the reign of the judges, that they should commence in digging up heaps of earth round about all the cities, throughout all the land which was possessed by the Nephites. And upon the top of these ridges of earth he caused that there should be timbers, yea, works of timbers built up to the height of a man, round about the cities. And he caused that upon those works of timbers there should be a frame of pickets built upon the timbers round about, and they were strong and high. And he caused towers to be erected that overlooked those works of pickets, and he caused places of security to be built upon those towers, that the stones and arrows of the Lamanites could not hurt them. And they were prepared that they could cast stones from the top thereof, according to their pleasure and their strength, and slay him who should attempt to approach near the walls of the city. Thus Moroni did prepare strongholds against the coming of their enemies, round about every city in all the land. Now as to one of the ways they buried their dead after a battle, let us read Alma chapter 16, verse 11. "Nevertheless, after many days their dead bodies were heaped up upon the face of the earth, and they were covered with a shallow covering. And now so great was the scent thereof that the people did not go in to possess the land of Ammoniah for many years. And it was called Desolation of Nehors, for they were of the profession of Nehor who were slain, and their lands remained desolate. Let's now read of two incidents in the life of Joseph Smith that dealt with the Nephites. The first is recorded in History of the Church, Volume 2, pages 79 and 80, and took place on Zion's Camp in Illinois. During our travels, we visited several of the mounds which had been thrown up by the ancient inhabitants of this country, Nephites, Lamanites, etc. And this morning I went up on a high mound near the river, accompanied by the brethren. From this mound we could overlook the tops of the trees and view the prairie on each side of the river as far as our vision could extend, and the scenery was truly delightful. On the top of the mound were stones which presented the appearance of three altars having been erected one above the other, according to the ancient order, and the remains of bones were strewn over the surface of the ground. The brethren procured a shovel and a hoe, and removing the earth to a depth of about 1 foot, discovered the skeleton of a man, almost entire, and between his ribs the stone point of a Lamanitish arrow, which evidently produced his death. Elder Burr Riggs retained the arrow. The contemplation of the scenery around us produced peculiar sensations in our bosoms, and subsequently the visions of the past, being opened to my understanding by the Spirit of the Almighty, I discovered that the person whose skeleton was before us was a white Lamanite, a large, thick-set man, and a man of God. His name was Zelph. He was a warrior and a chieftain under the great prophet Onondagas, who was known from the hill Cumorah, or eastern sea, to the Rocky Mountains. The curse was taken from Zelph, or at least in part. One of his thigh bones was broken by a stone flung from a sling while in battle years before his death. He was killed in battle by the arrow found among his ribs during the last great struggle of the Lamanites and Nephites. The second incident is found in History of the Church, Volume 3, pages 34 and 35, and took place in Missouri near Adam-on-Diamond. Saturday the 19th. This morning we struck our tents and formed a line of march crossing Grand River at the mouth of Honey Creek and Nelson's Ferry. Grand River is a large, beautiful, deep, and rapid stream during the high waters of spring, and will undoubtedly admit of navigation by steamboat and other watercraft. At the mouth of Honey Creek is a good landing. We pursued our course up the river, mostly through timber, for about 18 miles when we arrived at Colonel Lyman White's home. He lives at the foot of Tower Hill, a name I gave the place in consequence of the remains of an old Nephite altar or tower that stood there, where we camped for the Sabbath. Hundreds of thousands of mounds, many surrounded by discernible earthen or rockwork fortifications fitting the description given by Alma, have been documented to exist in the areas you are now being shown. The dots represent many sites grouped into an area rather than individual remains. These have been found in the whole of the eastern United States, from the Dakotas on the northwest to Louisiana on the southwest, and from Florida in the southeast to New York in the northeast. Looking at Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, we see the documentation of tens of thousands of sites. If we now move to Cumorah in New York, we come to the area we are most concerned with. The following description concerning New York were collected by E. Cecil McGavin and Willard Bean in their book Geography of the Book of Mormon. Cumorah land consists of about 50 drumland or glacial hills, ranging in length from 1 to 4 miles, and from 1 rod at the north to 30 rods at the south where it fades away. Among these hogback hills are the famous Finger Lakes and many small pools and streams. These hills and lakes all have the same north and south trend, the hills having been ricked up and the lakes gullied out by a receding glacier.